Hello, hello, hello. This is Adelai Brown, your heart coach, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the HeartLine podcast. Yes, this is our weekly show where we come together to build heart equity. What is heart equity, you might ask? Heart equity is when we build personal, relational, and financial wealth through authentic living. I am so excited about being with you all today because, we have a lot going on in the world. And one of the things I feel like God has called me to do, just being the heart coach and just what that even means, I feel like God has called me to encourage. And today I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you because I need you to know how important it is for you to show up in the world. I don't know if you've been watching the news, but I think it was on Friday, October the 7th, there was an attack on Israel, the country of Israel. And being that I am a believer in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, this attack is not just a war that you see on the news or an attack that you think that's just what's happening in the Middle East. No, if you read scripture and you read the Bible, then you understand when there is a war on Israel, then there are other things that have been prophesied or spoken in the past that these things will happen in the future to come, which is now. And you're starting to see these things unfold. And for me, being in the space that I'm in right now, understanding that this is what God wants me to do in the earth is to encourage you and to encourage us so that we can come together and really make a change in the earth. I need you to understand that seeing this war on Israel, it impacts you. It really does impact you in your everyday life. And so I wanted to get on today with a sense of urgency because our world is changing all around us. I don't know if you remember back in July, they were talking about how the earth is as hot as it's ever been on record. So, since humans have been keeping track of what the temperature is on earth, this summer, the earth is as hot as it's ever been on record. What does that say? I know that when the Lord destroyed the earth the first time, he did it by water. And when he said, that's why we got promised the rainbow. The rainbow itself, that beautiful image that we see in the sky, that's a reflection of the rain. That rainbow symbolizes that the Lord will never again destroy the earth with water. He will do it with fire. What am I saying to you? The earth is as hot as it's ever been. The scriptures talk about what's going to happen when I think it's the Tigris or the Euphrates River dries up. It talks about what's going to happen when there's war on Israel. And so what I need you to understand is that yes, I'm not trying to make you scared, but I want you to understand that you don't have time to play. That's all I'm trying to say. Like the Heartline, the reason for this podcast is to be a weekly reminder that you are building heart equity, personal, relational, and financial wealth through authentic living. Your finances and your income will increase when you work on yourself, when you work on your personal life, when you work on your relationships, because health is wealth. Having good relationships, that is wealth. And ultimately, that will impact your finances. But none of that is going to be true to you if you're not willing to live authentically. And we are living in a time of war. So this means that you cannot be out here focusing on things that don't matter. When there was a storm going on with Jesus and his disciples, there was a storm on the water, like a whole hurricane, a gale force wind, right? But with Jesus and his disciples, Jesus was sleeping in the boat while there was a storm, while there was a war, while there was a battle going on around him. His disciples were afraid, but he wasn't. So I am not telling you this for you to be afraid. However, I do need you to understand that in this season, there is work that you need to do. There are books that you need to write. There are programs that you need to create. There are items that God has been calling you to sow. There are recipes that God has been calling you to put together. There are homes the Lord has called you to build. There are children the Lord has called you to care for and nurture. There are equations that the Lord has given you in your mind that could change the trajectory of math and the way we do science and all of the things. What am I saying? It is time for you to show up. The end is near. We have work to do. And I can speak for myself. This thing is very heavy on me. I'm so excited to be working in the Heart Hub, and you'll be hearing more about that. But we have events coming up and sessions coming up and workshops coming up here with Addie BB and all that we're doing with building heart equity in the community. Why? Because I understand that the end is near. And the Bible tells us, I think it's in Psalm, I'm going to read it to you. It's Psalm 4:20, no, Proverbs 4:23. It says, let me go to it because you need to understand, like, Proverbs 4:23 says, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it is the issues of life. This is the thing. When you see war, when you see abuse, when you see neglect, when you see the rich getting richer, the poor getting poor, people not having compassion for one another, when you see people killing one another just because they're getting angry on the highway and by way of road rage, when you see parents neglecting their children and you see children fighting and harming their grandparents and killing their parents, let me tell you what that means. This is telling us that in our world, we have issues flowing out of our hearts. We have some serious issues that are flowing out that must be addressed. And let me tell you something. Food isn't going to do it. Money isn't going to do it. Sex isn't going to do it. Partying isn't going to do it. Educating yourself isn't going to do it. You have to prioritize your emotional health and your emotional well-being so that you can be the fullest version of yourself. Your heart flows the issue out of your heart flows the issues of life. Let me break down something to you. The Hebrew word for heart is lab, and I'm going to read this to you because what you need to understand is that the heart is so important. It talks about how I got to get to this, y'all. I was not okay. It says with the heart. Let me tell you what the heart says. I want to drop my coffee. It says the heart. That when you hear someone talking about the heart, when you hear me talking about I'm the heart coach, people, well, what is that? I am a life coach. I do help people strategize through their lives and their businesses, right? But one of the things that I said, the Lord told me that I was a heart coach early on. And I'm telling you this because I believe that the Lord has given you a specific, unique way to do the things that He's called you to do. And you're trying to fit yourself in a mold. You're trying to be like someone or act like someone or show up like someone you admire or somebody you look up to or somebody that you esteem higher than you were esteeming yourself. Let me tell you something. The great things that you see in other people are a reflection of what's already in you. You got to get to know that. You got to lock into that. You have to focus on that. You have to prioritize the fact that you are great, right? You got to get your heart right. You were hurt. You were abandoned. You were neglected. You were abused. You didn't tell anybody. You sucked it up. You made those inner vows and said you would never let nobody hurt you like that again. You will never let nobody play you like that again. You will never let somebody abuse you and neglect you like that again. But let me tell you something. You're doing it to yourself when you don't take care of your heart. This is how you show up. You show up by being authentic, by telling the truth. Tell the truth about how you feel. Tell the truth about your experiences. It's not just about what people did to you. Tell the truth about what you did to other people and how bad you feel about it. Tell the truth about that stuff. We are at war. We talk about Russia and Ukraine. You talking about what's going on in Israel, but what's going on with the police and the Black community? right? What's going on with marriages that we have a higher divorce rate than people staying married? You cannot tell me that's not a war. Look at what's going on with healthcare in our country. Look at what's going on with our young people and mental health and how suicide is on the rise. We are at war. It's not just physical weapons. It's mental weapons. It's emotional weapons. It's societal weapons. And you got to show up. You got to quit waiting for somebody to come and save you. You got to save yourself. How you going to save yourself? You got to get in the word. You got to start reading your Bible. You got to call unto him, and he will draw near to you. The Lord is waiting on you to ask him how. The Lord, and matter of fact, you don't even need to be worrying about how. You need to be worrying about being. It's time for you to show up. You know why you ain't been showing up? Because you've been an imposter. You can't show up when you showing up as a copy. We want the authentic original. When I used to work in corporate and I worked in the doctor's office, I remember when it was time to make copies and it was time to do a lot of work, and maybe I was putting together the information for new patients or gathering information for doctors getting ready for the next clinic or surgery or whatever was going on. I remember particularly wanting to use the original to make copies, because if you use a copy to make a copy, every time you use that copy to make a copy, guess what? The integrity goes down more and more and more. It is less appeasing to the eyes. It is less useful. You are not useful trying to be like somebody else, doing life like somebody else. We need the real you to show up. Like what Eminem said, with the real Slim Shady, please stand up. I need the real you to stand up. Like, I need you to quit playing. I need you to quit acting like you don't know who you are. People are dying every day because you won't show up. I had to realize that. And I'm going to still give y'all a definition of heart, but I got to say this, like, being a heart coach, a life coach who focuses on issues of the heart. And I'm about to define to you what are issues of the heart, right? By definition. I used to think something was wrong with me. I really thought something was wrong with me because there was no way that I could feel the way I was feeling. I could experience people. There were people in my family that I loved, friends of the family, friends that I loved. And I remember I used to wonder, why they act like this with me? Like, why they act like I just get on their nerve, and I just and why people always have something to say? Why does it just seem like every time I come around, people just get irritated? People just get frustrated. You ever felt like that? You like think about it. Even being a young kid, if you're the type of person who's getting delivered from being afraid to ask people for help, right? You so independent because you don't ever want to ask anybody to do anything for you. You probably experienced something similar to this in your childhood. Maybe not the same, but similar. And as a child, what I have learned, the psychology of children, when we feel those negative emotions as a little kid, we really don't have the mental capacities to really reason with what's going on around us. So when you feel those emotions, those negative emotions as a child, especially when you internalize them, you're only going to come up with two conclusions: either you're good or you're bad. So if the emotions already have a negative feeling, and you don't have a clear understanding of what's going on around you, whether you knew it or not, it's a good chance you thought you were bad. You told yourself you were bad and something was wrong with you. And if you didn't, just let me tell you, I did, right? And that played out in so many different areas of my life. And I want to share that because I feel like you may have been waiting for somebody to validate what it is the Lord is calling you to do. And what I need you to know is that you feel this thing so heavy in your heart. It's so deep down inside of you. You have to show up as that authentic being that you are. And you have to do that thing that God has called you to do. You have to do it. Like, you have to show up. You have to confront who you thought you were. That little kid that wants to hide because you tired of being let down, and you tired of people talking about you, and you tired of people judging you, and you tired of people critiquing you. They're gonna do it regardless. You're gonna have to push through that. You're gonna have to push through the fact that no, they're not gonna celebrate you. No, they're not gonna tell you did a good job. But that doesn't mean you're not doing a good job. That doesn't mean that you're not doing all that God has called you to do. But the one thing you got to understand is, out of your heart flows the issues of your life. And there's a scripture that tells us that when we're talking about eternity, now I'm paraphrasing now, but when you start talking about whether you're going to heaven or hell, you know how that's going to be determined? By the quality of your heart. Your heart. Not how good you were, not how much money you were able to save in the bank, not by how much you bossed up on other people and how when you be stepping out, you be looking better than everybody else, but you feeling worse than everybody else, right? No, that's not how you're not going to go to heaven because your kids were on honor roll and your sister's kids barely passed. You're not going to go to heaven because you bought a house and you have a degree. That's not going to take you to heaven. Having a successful business, that's not going to take you to heaven. What's going to take you to heaven? Let me tell you something. The quality of your heart. Now I'm about to read this to you. It says heart, lab, pronouncing lame, like we would say Labe, but in the Hebrew, this is spelled Leb. And I'm not a scholar in that, so forgive me, but I'm learning. And I invite you to learn with me. It says very widely. So when you hear the Bible talking about heart in various passages, this is why it's important to read your Bible, but also study. So I have the King James Version, and then I also have the Strong's Concordance, because I'm really working on wanting to understand the scriptures that I'm reading. Right. So it says, keep thy heart. And the definition of heart here, when it says keep thy heart, for out of it flows, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. So it's 38:20, right, in the Strong's Concordance. And it says, very widely for the feelings, the will, and even the intellect. Likewise, for the center of anything. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life, right? So the heart is the feelings, the will, and even your intellect. Likewise, for the center of anything. Understanding, wisdom, well considered, courage regarded, right? So that's lab, it's talking about figuratively. So let's look at lab, heart, as a noun, right? It says summary. The heart includes not only the motives, feelings, affections, and desires, but also the will, the aims, the principles, the thoughts, and the intellect of man. In fact, it embraces the whole inner man, the head never being regarded as the seat of intelligence. While it is the source of all action and the center of all thought and feeling, the heart is also described as receptive to the influences both from the outer world and from God Himself. Lab means heart, mind, midst. It is used of God and man. Heart may refer to the organ of the body. It may also refer to as the inner part or middle of a thing. Okay, your personality. So when I talk about I'm the heart coach, what this means to me is I am working with you and coaching you through your motives, your feelings, your affections, your desires, your will, your aim, the principles, the thoughts, and the intellect of who you are. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to be very, very honest with you. I was angry at God for a very long time for calling me to show up as the heart coach. And for a long time, I'm like, I'm Adelai, but I also understand that I've been a heart coach since I can remember. I remember being a little girl and I could feel the adults around me. I could feel when somebody was sad. I could feel when somebody was angry and getting ready to be violent or abusive or deceitful or manipulative. I could pick up on that stuff. And I used to think that something was wrong with me. And even to this day, I'm talking recently here in every day, I find myself dealing with people and instances and situations that I find myself like, oh my gosh, this person heart ain't right. And no, I'm not God. And no, I cannot judge a person, but I thank God that I have been gifted the spirit of discernment. And I can tell you a lot of times I can pick up on somebody's motives, their feelings, their affections, and their desires. It triggers me a certain way. It causes me to react a certain way. Sometimes I can't help but say something. At one point I felt like, oh, I'm being I would hear what other people were telling me. You so judgmental. You always got something to say. You always want to critique people. You always want to tell people how to live. You know what? That used to bother me for so long because I did have something to say, right? I did notice a lot of that stuff. Now, with wisdom and maturity, I realize everything I don't need to address with the person. A lot of times when you see an issue with someone, well, there's another way you show up. You don't have to confront that people to all y'all nice, nasty, rude people. You don't always have to confront everybody. A lot of times you're dealing with a spirit and you need to pray for them. You need to uplift them in prayer. You need to encourage them. But let me tell you something. Like it's important for you to understand your motives. It's important for you to understand why you're doing the things that you're doing so that you can find change. This war that been going on in Israel been going on since the Bible was written. And that's why this stuff came to pass. Out of the heart flows the issues of life. Everything you can look around you and find a problem with right now in your world, in your circumstance, and what you got going on, it is indicative of a heart issue. And people want to talk about physical health. We got insurance that'll cover, all these other things, but people don't want to focus on the emotional health and well-being that needs to be addressed for us to really live our lives to the highest level. Let me tell you something. Y'all don't, I am never, ever, and let me take this back. Let me take this back because I'm human and I make mistakes and I have to get checked. That's why I got people around me that I love. Because I get checked all the time. I got a bad attitude. I work on that daily. I know it. I know I do. But let me tell you what I know. The thing that I know is I have committed to this hard work that we do, right? And I have committed to the Lord that I want my heart to be right. Because see, it's a lot of y'all out there doing stuff and your heart ain't right. It's a lot of y'all out there doing stuff and you doing it just for show. You doing it just because you want people to see how good you are. You want people to know how smart you are. You want people to know how beautiful you are. But when you really are doing those things, guess what? It leaves, it's like when somebody puts perfume on without taking a shower, right? And they needed to take a shower before they put the perfume on. So the initial smell is very sweet, but that after breath, that after gust that you get is usually not so much. And a lot of us, another way I can look at it is a lot of us are out here bleeding on people, right? You are supposed to be doing your work and your healing, but instead of you taking the time to nurture yourself and cover yourself and encourage yourself, you think they need it. or I got to go save them and I got to go help them and I got to go uplift them. Meanwhile, you still dripping blood all over the place because your heart is still broken. And I'm not trying to say you don't help people in the midst of what you're going through, but like James tells us, confess your faults one to another and pray ye one for another that you may be healed. The effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. We have to get our hearts right. That's what confession is all about. When you confessing your faults one to another, you are sharing what your motives, your feelings, your affections, and your desires are. You talking about your will, the aim, the principles, the thoughts, and the intellect of who is you. See, so many times we so focused on doing, and we have to adopt this idea of be, do, have instead of have, do, be. Be, do, have. You have to show up. This is how we're going to change our world. This is how we can get ahead of the next pandemic that's coming through, and in conjunction with all of the war that's breaking out. The Bible told us that in the last days, it would be the best of times and the worst of times all at the same time. Doesn't that look like what we living right now? Doesn't that look like what we going through right now? I'm telling y'all, I need you to show up. That's why I'm showing up. That's why we have the Heart Equity Masters class. Once a month, we're doing our masters classes. Why? Because we have to do our heart work. We have to take our heart through this heart incubator. You know, like an incubator. It incubates a baby and helps a baby grow, especially when the baby has been exposed to the elements to the world prematurely, or the baby is in a situation where it needs to be nurtured, or even adults. People get put in chambers sometime when they need to be in more controlled environments until they can manage the world around them. What we're doing in the Heart Equity Masters class is we're giving you an opportunity to incubate your heart so that you can heal it and have enough healing to get out there and stop bleeding on people and be able to help people. Because a lot of us say we out here working on ourselves and, working through our trauma, because that's a buzzword, but we really out here using that as an excuse to be nasty. We using that as an excuse to stay stuck. Stop telling people you know why you doing what you're doing. All right, that ain't good enough. Now what you gonna do about it? What you gonna do about it? What you gonna do about the fact that you know you got a bad attitude, Adelai? I'm gonna go to therapy. I'm going to share with my loved ones. Well, one, I'm going to talk to them and ask them, have they experienced my bad attitude? And then I'm going to sit there and listen without having an excuse for having a bad attitude when they tell me about their experiences. See, when we talk about doing hard work, I know it's not fancy. I know it's not sexy. I know it's not necessarily, it's kind of like, I feel like hard work, if I had to compare hard work to a trade that I have a lot of respect for, I feel like being a heart coach is likened unto being a plumber. Shout out to Ronnie and all those other plumbers out there that keep everything flowing, right? Because the truth of the matter is, nobody really wants to see the plumber. But when your drains are clogged up in your home, if you've ever had to experience that, you know that one clog can literally back up your whole entire home. No toilets flushing, nothing draining down the sink. Like this is a real thing. And I feel like nobody wants to talk about plumbing work because a lot of time it's stinky, it's nasty, it's all of that. But let me tell you something. If you don't deal with the plumbing in your house, your home will not be livable, because it can become a health hazardous to you and the environment around you. That's why it's very important for you to make sure that your plumbing work is flowing properly. And that's exactly the truth about healing yourself, about your emotional and mental and spiritual health. You out here wanting to make sure you got a banging body, but your heart is broken. Your mental health is about to be off the rails, and your blood pressure is high. But you got a consult to do plastic surgery and no shot. But why don't you heal your internal body so that what you want to fix on the outside, that your body can actually withstand what's going on the outside? You got to incubate yourself. You need to take your heart through the heart incubator. That's why I'm doing the master's classes. And I know it's not for everybody. I don't even want, I know it's not for everybody. There was a time that I used to be like, oh my gosh, why don't more people sign up? Like, why don't why don't more people sign up? Or why aren't people acting like they hear me? Oh, I know y'all hear me. I know people listening. But nobody don't want to talk about it because people don't want to admit that they backed up, that their hearts are backed up, that their souls are backed up, that their minds are backed up, that their body is feeling the effects of holding back all of the waste that you need to be excreting daily. Do you know that if you have a healthy body, then every time you eat, your body should be excreting waste within a few hours? There are some of you that don't use the bathroom, but maybe once or twice a week. I'm curious, are you eating once or twice a week? And if not, then you're using the restroom. You should be. Now, I'm not a doctor, I understand that. But for the most part, a healthy body releases the waste that comes in within hours, right? You eat breakfast. By lunchtime, you should be excreting the waste that your body didn't use from the nutrients from breakfast. At least by later afternoon, right? You should be doing that. It's the same thing with your emotional and mental health. When you go through things throughout the day, you might have had somebody pull out in front of you in traffic, and that caused a lot of anxiousness and fear, but you didn't deal with it. You just got back to your normal routine. And you might have had an argument with your husband or your wife in the morning about somebody not putting their socks where they belong, right? But you never dealt with that. You just keep going through the day. And now you get to work, and now your boss came at you the wrong way because they're having a bad day, but you don't deal with it. I'm okay. You keep telling yourself you're okay. But then when you get home, after being cut off in traffic again and not dealing with it, now when you get home and your child asks you a question about homework and you flip out on them, you wonder why. See, you went to the bathroom maybe once or twice throughout the day to excrete the physical waste of what you were ingesting throughout the day, right? But how often do you release the emotional, mental, and spiritual waste that comes into your life? Huh? This is what I mean by showing up. I'm talking about showing up for you. Yeah, I know you've been meaning to schedule that event, and you've been meaning to get this group together, and you've been wanting to follow up with this person because y'all had a great conversation and you think y'all could really do some things together. Yeah. All that is good. But what are you doing to work on your motives? Have you checked your motives? Why are you doing what you're doing? Seriously, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? And if it's not rooted at the core of who you are, then it's time for you to do something else. Let me tell you something. Some of y'all are eating right. Some of y'all are exercising. You go to Bible study, you go to church, you got therapy, and your blood pressure is still high. And you still can't sleep at night. You know why? Because you're not telling the truth. Because you've been keeping secrets for a very long time. You've been keeping secrets so long, you don't even know you're keeping the secrets. You have forgotten about things that are actively causing problems in your life right now. This is what I mean by showing up. Show up for you. Excavate that thing which is your heart. It is time for you to start digging through your feelings and your emotions like you are archaeologists looking for some long lost treasure. This is how you're going to change our world. You are going to change the world by changing your world. Do you understand that within you is your own ecosystem, and the quality of your ecosystem impacts those around you? I made up in my mind that I have embraced the fact that God called me to be an encourager, and I want to encourage each and every person I have the opportunity to encourage. And if you don't want it, I ain't got to give it to you. That's a lot of growth for me, because I know the importance of this heart work. I know the importance of going through the heart incubator. The heart incubator changed my life. I know what it's like to hate yourself and contemplate suicide on a daily basis. I know what it's like to be at odds with your parents and your significant other and your friends and your coworkers. I have been there all at the same time. I've been that one that people say, oh, who she thinks she is. You always think the world revolves around you. I've also been the one angry and upset and jealous at other people for getting the attention that I so longed for and desired. But I've also done the work. And I'm telling you, you got to do your work. You calling out to God, and God, change the world. God, stop the war in Israel. God, help the people in Ukraine. God, we praying for Africa. We praying for the immigrants at the border and those that are going through those things. But let's pray for God to bless you to be the best version of yourself. Let's pray for God to give you the courage and the confidence to focus completely on what He's called you to do, because long gone are the days for you to think that you can pour from an empty cup. What you doing? What you doing, bruh? I mean, ain't nothing in there, sis. But you steady trying to pour into people when you are empty and depleted. What is it? Smoke and mirrors. Stop trying to control a shatter. You so vain. Stop being so vain. I know it's tough. I know it's so easy to hide behind the image that you're presenting, because you don't want to deal with the truth of who you are right now. But can I tell you something? When you deal with the truth of who you are, you're going to change the world. Embrace all of who you are, even the stinky stuff. Thank God for the plumbers. Embrace it. People like to make like I've never understood why. I mean, I guess I can get why people make such a joke about people passing gas or people using the bathroom, how we say with the kids, number 2 defecation, anything surrounding that, right? But the truth of the matter is, if you don't poop, you're going to die. And some people don't poop enough, and it's slowly killing them, because your immune system, your overall health is rooted in your gut, in your intestines, right? And that's also how you process the waste in your body. That's a part of it. That's a big part of how you get the waste out of your body. And all too often, we get shamed by having to use the bathroom, or so and so went in and blew up the bathroom. Why? Because it doesn't smell good. And it can be embarrassing. Sometimes people have so much to do, it can back up the toilet. It could cause problems that now this private, intimate time of releasing waste, sometimes it can get backed up and it can cause problems. But it doesn't mean the person didn't need to use the bathroom. It doesn't mean the individual didn't need to get the waste out. And I truly believe that if we're going to change our world, we're going to have to get used to the fact that healing stinks. The healing process stinks. It doesn't smell good. It doesn't look good. It doesn't always feel good. But there's a lot of relief once you go through the process. When you are impacted, in medical terminology, like you are in a bad space. You have to release. And what I'm telling you right now, you have been impacted. Your parents have been impacted. Your grandparents have been impacted. Their parents have been impacted. You're talking about sitting on 4, 5, 6, 7 generations of people who never released the waste. So if it was stinky 200 years ago, what you think it smell like now in your family? That's why certain things keep going on in your family. Certain people keep dealing with certain sicknesses and diseases. Stop saying this stuff is hereditary and genetic, and it could not be. But you got to be willing to make the adjustments and make the changes to make that happen. But are you willing? This is how you show up. You show up when you say, I'm not playing these games with y'all no more. I want to keep my motives right. I want to make sure that my feelings and my affections and my desires are all aligned with what God has called me to do. I want to acknowledge and pay attention to what I will to do, right? What I'm aiming to do. What are the principles that I have built my life on? You know, like what have I embraced on my inner man? We spend so much time and Can y'all hear me? I don't know if I was muted. Can y'all hear me? Anybody in the comments? Can I get a comment? Can y'all let me know if y'all can hear me? Okay, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Edith, because I'm going, and I think I missing hit the mute button. But I feel like you need to know this as we get ready to bring this week's podcast to it. And do me a favor, y'all. If this helped you, please share with someone else that you think it could help. Um, far too long we've been taught that how we feel doesn't matter, what we feel doesn't matter. And I want to subject to you that that's not true. Sometimes your feelings are not the truth about what's going on, but your feelings will inform how you're showing up in the world, how you're showing up in the earth. And a lot of times when we suppress our feelings, we can't get to the truth of who God is in our lives. See, David was able to say these things about God, and go read it, y'all. Please, 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 if you don't do nothing else, pick up the Bible and start reading it. You don't even have to be a believer in Jesus Christ. But I'm just saying, if you're living in this time and you want to make a change, I'm telling you, reading this Bible will help you do just that. So, the the 139th Psalm, he says, "O Lord, thou hast searched me and know me. Thou knowest my down sitting, my uprising, thou understanding my thought afar off." He is acknowledging, God, you know me. You know how I feel. You know what I'm going through. Like you know why I'm sitting down. You know why I'm standing up. You know why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. That's what David is professing this. That's why he says, "For there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether." You know what I'm thinking. You know what, like the Lord knows why you feel the way you feel. He wants you to understand. The Lord knows why you are insecure. The Lord knows why your self-esteem is so low. The Lord knows why you are backbiting and jealous and envious. The Lord knows why you play small. The Lord knows why you secretly cut yourself or you throw up every time you eat your food. The Lord knows why. But if you don't tell him the truth about how you feeling, then you won't know. And that truth can't set you free. You need to know why. You need to understand. Like, this is the pen. You need to know these things. This is how you're going to change the world. How you going to change the world? You're going to get to know who you are better. You're going to get to embrace who you are. That's how you're going to show up. You don't have to get on Facebook Live and start talking about everybody that hurt you and abused you. I actually do not suggest or support that unless you truly feel like that's what God is calling you to do. However, I do call you to get you a journal, right? I got a journal. My husband and my children gave me this journal Christmas before last, right? Get you a journal. Get you a notebook. Start writing down how you feel. Get you a therapist. Get you a life coach or a heart coach and start actually working through those feelings. You know, when you might see a number come across your screen and you kind of, you don't jump, but you feel that intensity in your body, maybe in your neck, in your back, in your chest, in your gut. That is a sign that there's a heart issue. When it's time for you to go after something you love, or maybe just tell somebody how you really feel. Like my husband is right here. And sometimes when I want to tell him how I really feel, I get nervous. Like I don't want to do it because I'm making myself vulnerable, but I have to do it. If we're going to be married and continue to grow together, I cannot control his outcome. That's the problem. We're going to talk about that next week. Y'all remember I said that. We're going to talk about control. Because a lot of us idolize control. and we pursue control, and it is tearing up our lives and the lives of those around us because it's limiting how we're able to show up. You're constricting yourself with this false guise of being in control. So, in closing today, remember what your heart is. You got an in-depth definition. When you hear people talk about the heart and the soul and the mind, this is what the heart is, y'all. The heart is very widely the feelings, the will, and even the intellect. Likewise, for the center of everything. Lab is the Hebrew word for heart. The summary includes not only the motives, feelings, affections, and desires, but also the will, the aims, the principles, the thoughts, and the intellect of a man. In fact, it embraces the whole inner man, the head never being regarded as the seat of intelligence. The heart, your heart, is the seat of your intelligence. Your heart is the seat of your quality of life. Remember, when you master your heart, you master your life. I love y'all. Thank y'all for being here. Register for this month's Heart Equity Masterclass, and we'll be back next Monday at noon. This is Adelai Brown, your heart coach, signing out.